the kind of the ongoing series of our workshops about employee relations in county government. It's called Crazy Things That Happen at Work. Now we're up to part 7 today, and I've subtitled it, That's the Way We've Always Done It. Or, Nobody's the Boss of Me. Which, have we lost any people yet that want to reconsider their election and go back to whatever normalcy there was? But these are the things that we hear a lot. That's the way why are we paying people double time if they work over a shift? That's the way we've always done it. Why are we putting people on the family and medical leave who are in the hospital? I don't know. That's just the way we've always done it here. And nobody's the boss of me. You know, I'm an elected official. Well, guess what? Knock, knock. Who's there? The DOL. DOL who? The Department of Labor. And we want you to reconstruct your time records for the last 3 years for all current and former employees. Well, you can't do that. I'm an elected official. No, we're a federal agency investigating a complaint, and we want to see your records. And we want them produced to show all time work. Well, we don't keep track of time. You know, people just kind of come and go. And believe me, in my 20-some years in working with counties around Indiana, the one thing I've learned is that everybody's an expert about what's going on across the hall. She left early. I don't think she marked it down. Now, why did she get to do that and I don't? Where are they going? What are they doing? Maybe it doesn't happen in your county. I don't know. You can't tell me what to do. Well, I've kind of put together some materials here considering where you are, and I understand there's a number of you coming into office for the first time, a number of new auditors around the state in particular, where if you haven't seen that job up and close, believe me, it's a doozy, because you're really caught right in the middle of a lot of personnel issues. And if you think about it, in the private sector, any organization that has 35 or 40 employees, they usually have an HR department. They usually have an HR or personnel director. Not in county government, not in Indiana. Out of 92 counties, I think we may have 12. So where does all that HR business happen? The auditor's office. And oftentimes right in the middle of the payroll deputy's work. So with that in mind, I've on page 3 of this handout, and we're going to go through it. This can be interactive. Stop me with questions. It's intended to be such to promote a little discussion here, but I've labeled this first, or this page, First Things First. We're coming into office. What are some recommendations just generally for newly elected officials, whether they be the auditor, the clerk, the assessor, any of the elected officials? Well, the first thing you ought to do is review the existing job descriptions with the employees to determine if they're accurate and complete. And you need to check them to make sure that there's a comprehensive duties that are actually being performed by the employee. Those descriptions ought to have specific job requirements. If they require a certain amount of education, or if there's certain skills, if there's certain certifications, they should be there. If we require somebody to drive a car or have a CDL license in the highway department, that job requirement needs to be a part of the job description. What are the reporting relationships? Who do the employees report to? They all report to me. Well, maybe in an office of 5 that works, but does that really work if the office is 20 or 30? Are there layers of reporting within the office? Is there a chief deputy layer in there? Are there supervisors? Who do we report to? I don't know. I report to everybody. Everybody's my boss around here. What are the work hours? Now that sounds rather simple. It's not. I noticed Pat's in the room. Anybody else from Madison County? You know? Knock. Hello. Well, as we all recall, when we had the Department of Labor show up there, they said, hey, we need to reconstruct those time records, elected office holders, and what time do we start work? Well, it depends. The judges start at one time, the health department does their thing, you know, highway their thing. Is the lunch hour paid or not paid? Heck if I know. This is the way we've always done it. You know, I don't know. Some are not. Some are half calf, decaf with a twist. You know, I don't know. Well, this, and I'll get to this a little later, but the Department of Labor has specific requirements for keeping time. And they're not suggestions. That's what they hold us accountable to. And they want to see a record. And if the lunch hour is not paid and we allow someone to work, guess what? We owe them money. Well, I didn't tell her to work. She just sat there and had lunch and just kept answering the phone and waiting on people to counter. She didn't have to. She could have left. We permitted her to work. It's work. And under the wage and hour rules, it is work that has to be compensated. Comp time or overtime. And we'll get into that, but some of you have heard me say this in the past. Comp time's available in the local government. It's like the crack cocaine of local government. People get hooked on it. You know, we'll just take some comp time. Somebody leaves, they say, well, you didn't use it, you lose it. Wrong. Comp time doesn't evaporate. We have to pay it off when somebody leaves our employment, voluntarily, involuntarily. If they die, we owe their estate whatever that value is at the time that they left, not at the time that it was earned. Say it was earned at $9 an hour and they leave and and they're working at $12 an hour, that's what we have to pay it off at. And we'll get into some of the questions there, but what are the work hours? What is the work schedule? Job description should have stated on it the FLSA status, Fair Labor Standards Act status, exempt or non-exempt. Now what this means is if I'm holding an exempt position, which I think we can point to in almost every county, the highway superintendent is the head of the highway department. They have a number of people working under them. They meet the test under the duties test under the FLSA to make them exempt. They're supervisors. They're directing the work of other people. There's a number of other jobs that are exempt within the county government. But the Department of Labor sets out tests that you have to meet. You just can't call them exempt because you don't want to pay them overtime. They have to meet the test. They either have to be a professional, having a degree and having the knowledge that they're applying through that degree to their work, county attorney. Lawyers practicing law, they're exempt. Engineers, same thing. That one's pretty cut and dry, professional. Or they can be an executive where they're supervising at least 5 people and they're performing the duties often in the absence of the elected office holder. exempt, or they can be administrative. Oh, we're all administrative, then we're all exempt. Wrong. It is the most narrow definition that the DOL has in exempting a position. You have to be very, very cautious about using that administrative exemption. So what that leaves us with is basically the larger group of county employees are non-exempt. Non-exempt meaning if they work over 40 hours in a 7-day work week, then they have to be paid time and a half for the time worked over 40 in the work week. Actual hours worked, okay? We'll talk about that a little bit more, but you need to know which jobs are, how they're classified and which way they're being treated when it comes to salary administration within your county. Well, the auditor's office can't tell us. Well, that's the way we've always done it. Well, you need to nail that down right away. If you don't know that answer, you need to figure it out. The Michael Blickman, who's an attorney at Ice Miller, put together a very nice piece in the last AIC, the newsletter, and it talks about how newly elected officials need to look at the jobs to see if they have confidentiality as part of them, whether they're policy-making jobs in terms of whether a person can be dismissed for political reasons. And again, I am very conservative. I'm cautious on this because there's been a number of places where this has been litigated and counties have had to pay back pay and to rehire people because they didn't meet those tests of being confidential or policy-making employees. And let's think about this for a minute. Policy making. Who actually in the county makes policy? Now, you think about it. Who makes the policy? Commissioners pass some policies. The county council passes salary ordinances and pay policies. What other policies are we talking about? I think you can make the case, arguably, that the General Assembly passes a lot of the policies that the counties have to meet by statute of their individual offices. Do the recorders decide on what recorders do by policy? No, not really. It's already prescribed. So to stretch that policy making into employees, I think is a tough challenge. So I'm very cautious, and we can talk about this more about calling someone a policymaker and saying you're not going to be a part of my administration, so pack it up, Barbara, you're done. We need to know when the date the job description was prepared. Well, 1998. Well, you think it's still accurate today? There's a good chance that a good portion of that is accurate, but things have changed, particularly with technology and how that has come into play in a number of offices in county government. Worked with an assessor a few years ago who had a guy that says, you know, I was hired in here when your dad was the assessor. And you know, he promised me that all I had to do was go check these cards and write down, you know, what the assessment was and put them in a box over here. Well, Charlie, you know, we've modernized the office. We don't have those cards anymore. You're really going to have to learn the software program and understand. Well, that's what he promised me, and that's what I'm doing, and I'm not going to do that. Well, push comes to shove, and very, you know, cautiously moving through a number of steps to get him training and to spend time with shadowing other people, but eventually it didn't work out. But it wasn't just the, you know, slap, you're fired, you can't do this. We have to document performance. So my advice to you as you look at your office and you come in, look at it in terms of finding out what's going on, one, and then secondly, how can we be more efficient? How can we restructure? That's possible, but spend a little bit of time with it, particularly if you're coming in from the outside and you're going to say, you're done. Well, how do you know what that person does? So we need to spend the time and do that kind of an assessment and an evaluation, come back 6 weeks later with a plan and say, look, I think these two jobs can be combined. I'm not sure we need both people. This person says that, her main job is, doing the analyzing the training needs of the police department and scheduling them. And, well, we haven't done any training in the last 5 years. What have you been doing? And this is a true example. It's a person who created her own job, and all the duties are periodic duties that aren't even being performed anymore. I absolutely do not know what she is doing every day when she comes to work. But nonetheless, she's been drawing a paycheck for the last 18 years. Well, it's the way we've always done it. She knows, Of course, in that case, I learned, well, the one thing you didn't know, what's that? The former police chief's wife. Oh, okay, yeah. That's good. Got it. Lastly, and this is going to be a reoccurring theme. See that there is an employee signature and date of acknowledgement for receiving the job description. Have they seen a copy of it? Well, I don't know. It's not my job description. I've never seen that before. Now, this will come back to haunt you time and again, either on performance issues or if you're going to send someone for a medical exam, for fitness for duty with the Family and Medical Leave Act. You need to have some acknowledgement that they've got a copy of the job description, that they know what the duties are, they know what the job requirements are, and you're holding them accountable to those duties. How in the world else are you going to do that? Now, I had a county commissioner say to me not too long ago, we don't need job descriptions in this county. I said, hello? And he says, no. Well, most of our office holders, they know what those employees are doing because it's all in their head. How are they, you suppose they're going to share that with people? You're going to be held accountable for what's in somebody's head? You're going to let somebody go because they were guessing about what they were supposed to be doing? And there's another piece by another law firm at the end about not having job descriptions and operating at your own peril. It's here for your reading pleasure later tonight when you want to conk yourself out and you can't get to sleep, but it's there. And the job descriptions are key documents in this whole process of having some personnel infrastructure. The next thing you need to do is review the existing county personnel policies, forms, procedures, and become knowledgeable of any recruitment and hiring practices that the county has in place. You need to understand what the salary administration process is for payroll, approving overtime, or comp time. You can't just let that person keep their own log of time and then use it as a retirement program when they leave. By the way, I've got all these comp time hours that I need to cash in. When did you earn them? Well, when I worked during lunch and I worked over, and I've got my record, and so that's what you owe me. Where's the county record? What county record? All the county record shows is that, I put down these figures and signed off on the payroll every 2 weeks. There's no internal record of actual hours worked. And unfortunately, in 2012, most counties have a lot of problems in the way of timekeeping. And I would get on top of that day one. You need to become familiar with benefits administration, your leave time, your insurance, retirement. This is another kind of a nailing Jello to the tree problem. When do you get your vacation? Every county, every policy could be a little bit different. It's your individual policy. Do we have to give vacation to employees? No. There's no rule that says you have to give vacation, but most counties have vacation policies. Some say you have to earn it on your anniversary date of hire. Hired in June, you get a week's vacation after a year, June. Other county policies, we give it to them January. Everybody gets in January. How much they get? Well, I don't know, 2, 3, whatever the policy says. Well, policy's not real clear about how that works. What's the vacation or holiday policy? Some policies say you have to work the day before and day after the holiday to get paid for the holiday. Others don't. But every county is governed by their own policies. And the commissioners are the ones who set the holidays, by the way. And they should be posting them right now for 2013 if they haven't done so already. Safety and working conditions should be a part of that personnel policy and should cover things like bloodborne pathogens and other federal OSHA requirements would be there. What are the work rules? What are the disciplinary guidelines? What's the records retention look like in your county? Where are the records kept? I don't know. Some are in the auditor's office. Some are, Phil took them, you know. I had a city client where they were changing administrations and police chief calls says, hey, Kent, you remember that disciplinary problem we had where we're going to fire that one cop? I said, yeah. Well, our new mayor decided to appoint him chief. That's good. But the thing I don't want is for all those records to evaporate on January 1. What should I do? Let's put on our thinking caps. How about transferring them to the clerk treasurer's office as the official record keeper of the city? Aha! So now that's where they sit and could be dusted off at any time that guy would come back. Okay, review the employees' personnel records. Check to see if people have had any ongoing family and medical leaves, or if somebody's on FMLA. And there's certain protections that have to be respected when somebody's on FMLA and how those are administered, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, if there's been people provided some reasonable accommodation under ADA in terms of the employment title and how they work, or workers' comp cases that may be ongoing or pending in your office. Are there any past performance evaluations? Or are there any disciplinary actions? Or do those evaporate when people, switch offices? Some people think, well, got a new auditor, got a new treasurer coming in. Everything's starting over from scratch, The fact that I, lost my temper and, told the last auditor to kiss it and, that's all gone now, I can't make this up. I mean, I had a call, and I get a lot of calls from auditors. They're just at the switch, It usually starts out with, You're not going to believe what our dumb fill in the blank did today. Prosecutor, judge, highways commissioner, you know. I said, yeah, I will. What would you do if the truck driver came in and told the superintendent to go F off? You're done. You're done. Well, he didn't fire him. He gave him a raise. I thought, Jesus Christ. Swear to God. Then 2 months later, I'm getting rid of that son of a gun. He's the worst guy I've ever had. Well, he had a chance back here, but now he didn't shovel off the walk, and that's reason to let him go. It's job security for John and I, anyway. Is there any past employment litigation, court settlements, federal or state mandates, or employment agreements in place? Like, certain counties, that DOL audit in Madison County stands. And every one of those elected officials at that time had to sign a consent agreement. And it agreed that we're going to follow the rules. Well, I wasn't there. I didn't sign it. Well, if there's another complaint, we're going to rack up another $500,000. So you better get on it. How much time do we have to go here, David?
If this is a good time to take a break, we'll take a break.
5 more minutes.
5 more minutes.
5 more minutes. Let the pee. Jesus. It's like the airplane, you're up there and well, there's one last chance before we land. And everybody, don't ever say that. Check to see if there's any employment litigation, anything that's in place that locks you into some kind of a situation with an employee that you may not know about. Try to find out about it. Your first meeting with staff, I would suggest that you put together an agenda, not just go in shooting from the hip, that establish your expectations for the office. This is the time to set the tone. So there is kind of a new day. I don't know how many people I have heard, I wish I would have done something back then. I should have got rid of her or I didn't lay down the law when I came in the office. This is the time. And I know for some people it's difficult to do because we've been co-workers. Now we're the boss. And God, I know Linda's family, oh my God, I don't want to do this. Her husband will come in here and raise hell with me and blah, blah, blah. But you're in charge. You're the one that has to set the tone. How do you want your employees to greet the public? The phone. Getting up and responding when people come into the office. I would set that out right away. What are the electronic communications going to be like? And anymore, now I know this is a generational thing, what's this social media policy going to be like in your office? Just all day. It used to be we'd have these rules about using the public phone. We don't even need it anymore. We have to regulate how they're using their own electronic devices, whether it be sexting, texting, whatever they do, How you use the county computers. And most of these policies they don't have policies about email and the internet that are tied into sexual harassment and how those are used. Well, I didn't know we couldn't visit those sites. We had some county commissioners had some issues that way, so they had the IT department come in over the weekend and clean it all up. Commissioners meeting on Monday, 20 of them show up. Our computers aren't working right. Oh, really? What's your name? You know. Take a look at that, the use of the computers. What's the coverage going to be like during meal times? What do you expect? How much cross-training do you expect with employees to be able to cover for other employees when they're off on leave or on vacation? And this is really stupid to even have to put down here. The employee relations, productive work environment, and policies prohibiting abusive behavior, including language, physical or non-physical or verbal, between each other. Would you just be nice to one another? You know, it doesn't happen anymore without telling people, I guess, but holding them responsible for it. What's the work attire? Oh, casual flip-flops and beachwear and whatever. And you have control over that in your office. And from a business perspective, I would make sure that you set the tone on what you expect people to wear and what's acceptable business attire in your office. Yeah, it's one thing to wear swimming suits if you work the park department at the pool, but, you know, not in your office. I don't know if there was a clerk down in Vanderburgh County. She kicked people out of the office that were vendors. Showed up with their belly buttons hanging out and their skirts, you know, way up. She said, no, people think you're working for me. You're not going to come in here and work behind the counter. And just put a stop to it. Ethics, public trust, things like ghost employment. You know, we're not going to pay you for not working. Or I can't pay you to clean my house on county time with... or give you comp time for it. And what the violations, or what's the consequences when you violate the policies? What are you going to do? And I'm not saying that you have to be hard-nosed, but I think you have to be sensible. And I think you have to stand back and say, look, I'm in charge now, and this is the way it's going to be. Because if you don't take that approach, you're not going to get that chance a year from today. You know, it's the teacher that lets the class run wild from day one. It ain't going to change, you know, next month. So you need to set the tone as you come in. And make sure, if you have work, I'd put together some work rules just for my office, covering these things, maybe a number of others. But I would have them sign and date it. And this does come in handy when somebody needs to be disciplined. Look, yeah, you did understand. We had a meeting on this. We discussed it. We discussed it a number of times. And you know, hold them to it. And then finally, reach out to learn from others. There's other elected officials out there, other auditors, other treasurers that are very seasoned at this work. They're very good. And look to them for help. I found the State Board of Accounts people are very helpful if you pose questions and ask for help. Not that they're here to find a problem, but try to get on top of it before there is. And obviously the AIC in calling David and his staff when you're in need of help. And